Hello everybody, welcome to this playthrough for Rookie Division with various wind here for the Wiseacre Ranch and the Summer Major Tournament in Golf Clash the game. We're playing from front tee, which we always do when it comes to Rookie Division. The video here is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, and before we take a look at the holes and the videos, make sure that you do hit the thumbs up button, also subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. You can follow the info boxes on the right hand side to get the club distance adjustment, elevation adjustment, also what ball and club type I suggest you to play with. Have in mind that those are all suggestions and you don't need to follow it if you don't want to. Also, you can find the ultimate tournament guides for pro, expert and master by going to patreon.com/golfclashtommy, link directly in the description down below. But enough talk about that, let's go to hole number 1. So, the Wiseacre Ranch is a new course for us, and here I've decided that if I do have a crosswind or I have a tailwind, I'm going to go aggressive. Why? It's because laying up will give us both water and bunker in play in a pretty bad way, which means that the eagle would be less achieved in my opinion. So I do go with a power 3 ball. You can play with a power 4 or a power 5 ball if you want to, but a power 3 ball in crosswind or tailwind is definitely going to be enough. Titan ball is what I'm using. I'm adjusting max plus 20, and then I adjust with 2 left spin and 4.5 bar top spin, and the idea here is to get into short iron range. Now, with the drive that I'm doing here, I'm getting into wedge range, which obviously was not really the plan, but it still works. So have in mind that you will either be in wedge range or in short iron range, depending on how well you do the drive. Now I'm using the Firefly, and I think the Firefly playing from front tee is definitely one of the better clubs actually to have in an early stage. Even if you wouldn't be having it in level 5, you would still be able to have a lot of topspin and a good ball guideline that will help you a lot trying to just use the topspin and roll the ball towards the pin. It will then minimize the adjustment you need to make, and that's always going to be good. But the majority of the times you will come into short iron range, and then you play with the short iron that you prefer to play with, and you use 10% elevation and go based on true club distance, meaning that you go with your club to minimum distance to maximum distance, then try to make an educated guess on what club range you are in with club. So again, if having headwind, we need to lay up, and the layup is going to be boring. It's going to be a birdie most of the times, but in crosswind and tailwind we go aggressive because that's the way for us to get an eagle on hole number 1, and therefore a good chance in the tournament, or if we play this hole in tour play, a good chance to win the game outright. Hole number 2. And I will give you 2 types of play here for hole number 2. The first one is going to be a rough bump. And I know I'm in love with rough bump, but the rough bumps are the best way to attack the pin in a scenario like this. It, however, though, requires a side spin 3 ball, which is the katana. So I'm using the sniper, I'm using the katana, 3 right spin, 1 back spin, ball guideline to the hole. This one you don't need to have an upgraded sniper for, as the ball guideline will still show as we're doing a rough bump. Now, adjustment is going to be medium distance with a 5% negative elevation, so it's uphill that we're playing. And the reason we're playing with a minus 5% elevation and not a plus elevation is due to the fact that playing a rough bump does eliminate a lot of the effect after the first bounce. So as you can see here, we do hit the rough nicely, and it rolls towards the pin. We just get it to drop there on the right hand side. So the rough bump is, in my opinion, by far the best opportunity to make an hole-in-one here on hole number 2 from front tee. But for those of you that don't feel comfortable with that, we do have another option here for you. Where would you play with a marlin ball just safely onto the green with a much less chance for an hole-in-one, but the chance is still there. So let's take a look. For the bounce over option, I'm going to play with 4 bars of backspin. I'm using my sniper, but I'm also using a marlin ball, mainly because I don't really want to spend a better ball, as I'm not really going to look to attack the pin in an aggressive way as we did for the rough bump. Obviously, we shall still aim and look for an hole-in-one. But as we're playing on a very bumpy fairway, the bounce-up shot, as I like to call it, is definitely going to be tougher to drop. Also, the Marlin ball is positive in the sense of if we do have tailwind, we do not risk to go in between clubs, which would have been a problem if using a power 1, power 2, or even a power 3 ball. Medium distance with a 15% elevation, a little bit in the need of a tweak, as I did not really play the 15% elevation here, so I need to make sure to follow my own note. But again, it's a very safe birdie for you that do not want to not gamble, but for those of you that do not want to go aggressive and play the rough bump. So for hole number 3, I will give you 2 ways of attacking this hole. One, which is my opponent that played a very interesting route, and I then chose to take the replays and talk over it here. First, you go with the driver that gives you the most power and topspin possible. He uses the Thor's Hammer level 5. He's not making an adjustment, but I would strongly advise you to stretch out your club to max, to have the ball guideline point towards the final piece of fairway. Visualize it, because you're not going to have the ball guideline in the length of showing into the next fairway. Adjust max plus 20, push up to max, then max overpower and half a ball of curl, and then you're going to be fine. Second shot is going to be then with a long iron towards the green. With our opponent's play here, he does play with the Grizzly, and I do agree that the Grizzly is a beautiful long iron here, but now when we have to play so close to the rough and the sand trap line, I would strongly advise you to play with a club called the Saturn instead. Even if you do have the Saturn in a lower level, you will be able to use more backspin, which means that you don't have to aim as close to the rough line there. I judge the elevation to be 10%, and then obviously it's going to be true club distance. So it's very important that you move your club up to max, then you move the club back to minimum distance to then make an educated guess on what club range you're in. A Titan ball is also preferred, mainly for the drive, as if we do have, if we don't have a power 3 ball, we may not reach over the rough with the second bounce. So again, this is a more aggressive option where we can get into long iron range, which is way better than having to lay up and play with a wood club. However though, if we do have headwind or a straight crosswind, there will be chance that we might not reach as we want to. So therefore we do have a layup option to you as well that I'm going to explain in detail right now. So for the thing that I would like to call the layup option is that we're gonna use the fairway to the right. First, I do look into, should I blast it, should I not? And I decide not to, because again, if we don't have the wind for it, we will not be able to blast it, as I already explained in watching the previous videos here for hole number 3. So we're gonna focus on being on the right hand side here. Now, add topspin, I would prefer to use 4.5 bars. If we do have tailwind, crosswind, I would prefer to use more if possible. And then obviously in headwind, I would also be prefer to use more there as well. Adjust max plus 20, push up to max. Make sure that you get all the distance that you need. In headwind, I would recommend to use overpower, even though overpower could be scary and risky, especially if you do hit a bad great ball. But the overpower will help you get down to around 380 plus yards, which what I would say is where we want to be. Now, for the second shot, we're going to play either just a safe way of getting the eagle, which means that we would use all the backspin we can and just bounce it on the fairway, or just use our long iron to bounce over the rough and sand up towards the green. But for those of you that do want to have the best chance for an albatross from distance here, are going to have to play the rough bump. And the rough bump here is a really good opportunity where if you adjust correctly, you will not miss the rough. But again, that's the risk that you're taking by doing an aggressive route. So that's why I explained to you that you can play it ultra safe and make sure that you're always going to get yourself the eagle, But if you do want to have an albatross chance that is a good chance, then you go for the rough bump, ball guideline to hole, adjust with a -5% elevation, and then hit perfect. What I make as a mistake here is that I use no elevation for this shot. So as we're playing the rough bump, we do need the negative elevation here, because playing and bouncing into rough will remove any type of extra effect by the wind after the first bounce. That's very important to have in mind. So let's say that let's say that we go back to how our opponent played on the second shot. He played with 10% elevation. Alright, then we think, why do I then suggest for the rough bump -5%? That's because when we do a bounce up shot towards the pin, we have 1, 2, even 3 bounces sometimes. Every time the ball leaves the ground, the ball is then going to be affected by the wind. And therefore there will be then a different elevation for a bounce up shot, like we saw in the first example, compared to a rough bump where the elevation will then be less, as the wind will not have the same effect on shots like that. But again, we have two options for you here. You decide which way you want to go. Unfortunately, you can't really decide if you do have a headwind or a bad crosswind. Then you're going to have to lay up on the right side and just be okay with the fact that you cannot reach to the spot that we want to when it comes to left hand side. And hole number 4, and this is honestly, you can see me now changing to a power 5 ball, and I'm not gonna say that it's impossible to reach for the green. Quite the opposite. I do think that if you are willing to spend a better ball like a berserker or any type of special ball, you do definitely in tailwind have a good chance to get that ball to green. But here I'm gonna focus on a more, less costly option, if that could make sense. I'm playing with a free-to-play ball called the Navigator, using 2 bars of top spin, 1 left spin, adjusting, you can see here, with the second bounce to be into the rough, to kind of use the tailwind here by making a push-up in the end. Max +10, push up to max, and then we shall just try to hit perfect. I'm using a little bit of curl to the left just to help the ball to stay on the left side of the fairway here, and bouncing over nicely and rolls here to the top of the fairway. Because now we're gonna have a decent chance for an eagle here from distance, and that is something that I do think we all need to have in mind. That sure, we could send it and risk by going close to green, but there is a lot of water as well. So do we really want to push too hard and risk that? But again, it's up to you to decide. I'm not gonna show you a way to get to green here, because I don't want to spend a berserker ball on this particular hole. So now I'm using backspin, and in this case 3.5 bar backspin. The importance when you play with lower level clubs such as Thorn level 5 here is that you will have a really bad ball guideline, so you need to leave the ball guideline short of hole with the backspin that you do have, because you need to compensate for the ball guideline that you don't have. So as having a ball guideline that is less than 4.0, this is going to be a pretty tricky thing that you're going to need to do. Now, I do play slightly less than medium distance with a 10% over adjustment, but I would obviously in this scenario recommend to play medium distance. But what you need to do, as always, I do recommend that always, is to go to max with your club, go back to minimum distance, and then make an educated guess on where in your club range you are. Because if you make an educated guess, that's going to be way better than just making a regular guess. But no matter what though, this is a good chance for an eagle on hole number 4. So let's take a look at hole number 5 in action, and this is going to be a very interesting par 3 in my opinion, where the rough bump is going to be my only play. Why? It's because not playing the rough bump is going to decrease the chances for an hole in one massively. It will also make it become easier to actually lose out on the birdie by not doing so. Because if we're going to not go with the rough bump here, we're either going to have to go with a lot of side spin on the left there, or bounce on that pad, as you can see at the back of the screen there. So what I'm doing is that I'm putting the yellow ring just by the edge of the rough. Ball guideline should always go slightly through hole in headwind. If we do have crosswind, we need to have the ball guideline to the hole, and in tailwind, ball guideline should be just short of the hole. The reason for that is that we need to compensate for the compressed and the extended ball guideline. The compressed ball guideline in headwind, which means that the ball guideline is going to be shorter than what it shows because the headwind is going to do that. And then in tailwind, we're going to have the extended ball guideline where the ball guideline is going to be longer than what it shows. So we need to think about that when we do this type of shot. Medium distance, with a 20% over adjustment is what I'm adjusting, and I'm playing with a navigator ball as I want to reduce the wind a little bit, but there is no point in playing with any of the heavy hitters ball. So hole number 6 is going to be together with hole number 9 to be the tougher of the par 5s here, especially if you do play with medium or lower level clubs. Obviously, if you play with higher level clubs here, you could take a shortcut by going to the right side there to bounce over the center part of the bunkers, but as I don't really have that, I'm gonna play away, which it's gonna be for eagle here. We're not really gonna have a look at the albatross, so have that in mind here. 4.5 bar topspin, round right spin, adjust max plus 10, push up to max in this scenario, and obviously if we do have a headwind here, we would be needed to use a decent bunch of overpower, and in crosswind we would need to use some overpower. In tailwind that's not needed, as the wind will in that case help us a decent bunch. So we're getting it over the water safely on the fairway, no risks taken there, and we're gonna then look into the second shot, which is gonna be just to transport the ball to the green area, or to to be close to the green. So as I do have the big dog here, I have two options. One, I do have topspin, so I can then go for a rough bump, even though this is more or less a blind rough bump, with the knowledge of that, okay, I'm either gonna be just short of green or I'm gonna be on the green, or that I'm gonna stretch out the club, use backspin, and also in that case use overpower to be able to reach over the rough instead. None of the shots will be a good look for the albatross at all, so both of them would be a way of securing the eagle. And what way would be the best way? That's up to you to decide. You can either go with the backspin explanation that I gave you just, or you can go for the rough bump and do that way instead. Again, that's up to you how you want to attack this hole to make sure that you secure the eagle. Unfortunately, with low level clubs and medium level clubs here, it's gonna be very difficult to have a decent look for the albatross, and that's why I ended up to just place for a secure eagle, and I'm gonna let those that do play with higher level clubs and the paid balls to do their own thing on this hole, as that's gonna be a little bit too heavy to go with that in a playthrough or in a hole guide. So, hole number 7, you will find two options here. One where we're gonna play it very safe and we're gonna have a shot with our wood club, and one where we're gonna play very aggressive using a power 5 ball. So we're gonna start with the more, conservative way of playing this hole. So I'm gonna try here to get this ball as far up the fairway possible without trying to get it to the right. So I'm just gonna try to get it, straight up here using max plus 10 as an adjustment on my drive. 1 bar of backspin, 3 bars of side spin to the right, adjust max plus 10 as already explained, then you push up to max. 3/4 of ball to the right in curl, try to hit perfect, and now you're looking to have the ball guideline centered down the fairway. From here, it's not going to be a bad play towards the pin because we're still going to be playing with a sniper here, but obviously playing so far away is always going to be including some difficultness, especially when it comes to getting something to drop, and in this case for an eagle. This is a long par 4. We need to have that in mind. So over 500 yards on this hole. So I'm using 2 bars of right spin. Ball guideline I'm using slightly through the hole, which is in my opinion a little mistake here. I should be having the ball guideline to the hole and not through the hole to make sure that we are not gonna come in too hot. Adjustment here, I do adjust for 10% elevation. I play kind of max plus 10 here, but we should be playing this one closer to 75% club, no elevation. So the reason I missed to the right is because I obviously over adjust this one pretty massively. Like not massively maybe, but in my book that's pretty big, to be honest. So in the end, we do play with katana as well. We give ourselves a shot for an albatross, sorry, for an eagle, even though, for from so far away, it's gonna be a little bit tougher to get than what we would be getting if we do play a bit more aggressive. So let's take a look at the more aggressive option here for hole 7. For the more aggressive option, I want you to play with a power fireball if possible. If you do have more or less a direct tailwind, you can come away with a power 3 ball as well. Because the idea here now is to go full freaking blast, trying to have the first bounce into the rafter and roll out on fairway. 4.5 bar top spin, 2 bars of right spin. I'm going 3/4 of ball to the right in curl. You rather want to hit great right than you hit great left. Max plus 10 is the adjustment as well, and you can see that the ball rolls nicely out on the fairway, and from here we're gonna have a short iron towards the pin. The short iron here is gonna be, in my book, a thorn, but you obviously decide or whatever short iron you want to play. That's not up to me, that's up to you. But the importance, as once again, when we're trying to dial a shot in here from kind of mid-distance club-ish, is to stretch out to max, to check where max is, and then go back to minimum distance. Now I'm cheating a little bit as I'm not going back to minimum distance, but that is at least what I want you to do to make sure that you do make an educated guess on what type of club distance you're gonna play this shot in. 2 bars of backspin, leave the ball guideline short. Have in mind that when you play with lower level clubs, you often have a pretty crappy ball guideline. Then you need to give room for the rollout, because if you aim directly to the hole with a not fully developed ball guideline, then you're gonna come in hot all the time. 10% elevation is what I'm using here as well. Perfect ball, and every time you hit a perfect ball with a somewhat correct adjustment, you're gonna give yourself a good chance for a drop on hole 7. Hole number 8, another par 3, another rough bump. Yes, and the reason we are playing rough bump here is because the rough bump is very thick, or like not maybe thick, but it's wide. We have a lot of room for error. We can actually misadjust with 2 rings and we will still hit the rough. So that is the biggest reason why I'm going for the rough bump here. The second reason, which should be the biggest reason, is that the rough bump will give us the absolute best chance for a drop here. So what I would like to do here is to put the top of the yellow ring by the rough line, same type of structure as we do have on hole number 5, with a ball guideline to go through the hole in any form of headwind. In crosswind, we need to have the ball guideline to the hole, and in tailwind, we're going to look to have the ball guideline short of hole instead. Medium distance with a 20% over adjustment is the adjustment, and then we do play with a navigator ball, as once again we do want to reduce the wind, but we don't need and want to play with any of the better balls. Sniper is the club as well, and you can play with lower level sniper, as you will still be able to have the power and the ball guideline to maximize the chances here for a drop. So for hole number 9, I'm going to give you 2 types of play here. One where we do play aggressive here, which we're going to start with, which is going to be with the big topper. Here you can play with a lower level big topper, so have that in mind. But it's dependent on tailwind. So when we do have any form of tailwind, we can play this route, as we do want to have the extra push to be able to clear this massive piece of rough that we do have in front of us. Max top spin as much left spin that you can together with that. Adjust max plus 10, push up to max. Then I'm using 3/4 of a ball to the left in curl. And I'm also using a couple of rings of overpower. You could use more overpower in this case, as you can see that I clipped the rough, but I honestly think this could be even better. But now for the second shot. This shot is not going to be easy, and there's going to be one reason, and one reason only, why this shot is not going to be easy, and that's because of the freaking bumpy fairway. I struggled a bit here to find a spot that I was satisfied with, and in the end I ended up to misadjust it poorly. But you're gonna see the idea. Look at the ball guideline here now when I do find the spot that I want to play, and look at the tip of the ball guideline. You can see that I'm moving from this spot here, moving right and left, and you can see that the ball guideline is still stuck. This means that we do have a funnel there, and that's something that I would like to try to take advantage of, but I need to adjust it properly. I can't adjust it as poorly as I'm doing here in the video. I would recommend here to play true club distance, 10% elevation here for this shot. To make that accurate. I'm definitely off with adjustments already explained here, which is gonna then explain to why I miss right. But I like the fact that we do have a nice spot to play in, aim for pin, and then you will see yourself being closer than what I am here on this one here. But if we do end up having crosswind, or we end up having headwind, or we end up not having big topper at all, then we're gonna have to pay attention for the next shot that we're gonna play, which is unfortunately not gonna be that good opportunity, but it's gonna be a way for you to at least secure the eagle. So for option number 2, this is gonna be the play if we do have a crosswind or headwind, or for that matter not having a big topper. This is an aggressive drive that I'm gonna play, but I do believe that it's gonna be necessary for us to try to get as far down the fairway possible, because if we're gonna bounce before the rough and the sand on the right, we're gonna have to make sure that we do have topspin enough to roll far enough to not put ourselves in a big problem. And that's the reason why I'm also playing with the big dog here for the second shot, to make sure that I'm always going to have the power on the second shot, to make sure to reach to the fairway and to be able to lock in the eagle. Max plus 10 for the adjustment. I use 4.5 bar topspin, 2 bars of right spin. I'm also using half a ball of curl to the right and max overpower. And the thing though with max overpower here is that you will not be able to need max overpower with all winds, but if you do have headwind, I would recommend to use max overpower all the time. Now second shot is gonna be just to transport ourselves towards the green area, unfortunately, but you know, that's what we're gonna do. So let's take a look, and we see here with the big dog, and I'm gonna try to use the same spot as we did have when we went aggressive on the first option, but I cannot really find the funnel, and to be completely honest, with the big dog, with a crappy ball guideline, it's gonna be close to impossible to dial this shot in. So for those of you that do want to gamble, you can pack the sniper if you do have it in at least level 7. Then you will have a better ball guideline for the second shot. Obviously the great right will not help either, but then you will have a better ball guideline for the second shot. But for those that do not want to gamble here, want to just say, okay, screw it, I'm just gonna get the eagle, then pack the big dog to make sure you do have the power on the second shot to make sure to reach for a safe eagle. Thank you so much everybody for watching this playthrough for Rookie Division with various wins for the new Wiseacre Ranch here for the Summer Major Tournament in Golf Clash the game. Video is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, and make sure you get your Ultimate Tournament Guide package on patreon.com/golfclashtommy. Thank you once again, and good luck in your Golf Clash game.